Did you know that in recent times there is an emerging religion that could change the course of history? According to the prophecy of the Book of Revelation, the emergence of a dominant religion is anticipated in the final days. In this video, we will conduct a comprehensive analysis of how this religion could consolidate its global control and who could be driving its expansion. We will examine the strategies used, the key actors involved, and the apocalyptic implications of this phenomenon. Prepare to discover a shocking revelation that could redefine our understanding of the end times. Before continuing, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any updates. Let's start. The Book of Revelation is unique in the Bible, revealing the future events of humanity and the end times. John, the author of this book, received these revelations while he was exiled on the island of Patmos because of his faith and testimony of Jesus Christ. In his visions, John saw and heard things so extraordinary that on several occasions an angel had to remind him to write down everything he witnessed. Revelation is a fascinating book with a clear theme: the triumph of good over evil. It describes how the forces of evil led by Satan will finally be defeated. This book covers a series of events that occur before, during, and after the return of the Lord Jesus, providing a detailed view of the final judgment, the destruction of evil, and the restoration of the kingdom of God. Revelation is a work rich in symbolism and prophecy, offering hope and comfort to believers while anticipating the fulfillment of divine promises. In the 17th chapter of Revelation, we are presented with a shocking revelation. John is invited by an angel to witness the judgment of an evil woman who represents the last world religion, described as a harlot. As we read and study this passage, we are also invited to witness the ruin and humiliation of this false religion. Are you ready to find out? For a clear understanding, let us analyze the verses of the 17th chapter of the Apocalypse, where the details of this event are revealed to us. Let's read verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke to me, saying, "Come hither, and I will show you the sentence against the great harlot, who sits on many waters." One of the 7 angels with the 7 bowls spoke to John and linked the judgment of the harlot to the last 7 plagues. The chronology changes to focus on the judgments on the Antichrist's world empire. The great harlot, a metaphor for false religion, idolatry, and apostasy, will be judged. In John's vision, the harlot is seated in a position of authority over many waters, representing peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. Their influence and dominion will be universal, and all will give themselves over to the false worship of the Babylonian system. False religion will dominate the world in the tribulation period after the rapture. The true Church of Christ is described as a holy and pure virgin, in stark contrast to the image of this woman, represented as a harlot. Karl Marx once declared that religion is the opium of the people, and in a sense, he was right. Empty religion, devoid of real meaning, can be as addictive and deceptive as a drug. This false religion, symbolized by the harlot, does not offer true salvation and leads its followers down a path of spiritual infidelity, idolatry, and apostasy. While the true church seeks holiness and purity, this false religion seeks power and control, deceiving the masses and distancing them from the truth. Let's continue reading verses 2 and 3. With which the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have become drunk with the wine of her fornication. And he led me in the spirit into the desert, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The association of the harlot with the kings of the earth shows her vast influence. The phrase, "they have committed fornication," reflects the spiritual immorality of the harlot with world leaders. Not only do rulers and influential people ally themselves with it, but the inhabitants of the earth, a term for unbelievers, become intoxicated with its falsehood. Everyone surrenders to this abominable world religion of the Antichrist, not literally with sexual acts, but spiritually, in complete surrender to falsehood. Then the angel who was speaking to John took him in spirit to a desolate place, similar to where modern Babylon is believed to be. There, John saw a woman sitting on a red beast, which is identified as the Antichrist in others, passages from the Apocalypse. This indicates that the Antichrist supports this woman. Religion will be key in the kingdom of the Antichrist, especially after God's judgments desolate the world and political, economic, and military powers collapse. In their desperation, people will turn to the supernatural. Thus, the beast and the woman will coexist for a time. Initially, religion will be separated from the dominion of the Antichrist. However, there will come a point where the relationship between the two will change drastically. The beast will eventually reject and symbolically destroy the whore, leaving her desolate and powerless. At that time, the false prophet will play a crucial role in instigating global worship of the Antichrist, thus consolidating absolute control under the rule of the beast. Let's continue reading verse 4. "And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, and had in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication." In this verse, we find the attire of the harlot. As is common among figures who seek to stand out, the harlot Babylon chooses her clothing to attract attention. John describes her as wearing robes of purple and scarlet, colors historically associated with royalty, nobility, and opulence. These colors not only symbolize her position of power, but also her ability to seduce and attract. In addition, it is adorned with gold, precious stones, and pearls, elements that not only indicate its material wealth, but also reinforce its image of luxury and sophistication. This luxurious and ostentatious attire not only sets her apart, but also underlines her ability to deceive and attract those seeking earthly riches and sensory pleasures. As a further indication of her riches, the harlot had a golden chalice in her hand. Like prostitutes who want to take everything the victim has, she will make her victims drunk. The harlot's golden cup is full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. Let us continue reading verse 5. "And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." Just as it was common in the Roman world for prostitutes to identify themselves, the harlot Babylon also has a name written on her forehead. She is called a mystery, Babylon. This suggests that Babylon in this context does not simply refer to a geographical location. This is not ancient Babylon of John's time, nor a physical reconstruction of the city in recent times. Symbolic Babylon can be seen in some sense as a representation of apostate religious systems throughout history. But Babylon the Great symbolizes in a special sense the apostate religions that will unite in the time of the end. She is appropriately called the mother of harlots, a term that frequently symbolizes idolatry in the scriptures. Then the question arises, why is this false religion called Babylon? Babylon has a deep significance in biblical history. Mentioned 287 times in the Bible, it is the second most cited city after Jerusalem. Located on the banks of the Euphrates River, Babylon was considered the cradle of civilization, but it also symbolized an organized rebellion against God, as recounted in Genesis chapter 11. After the flood, Babylon represented a marked hostility toward divine will. In time, Babylon became the capital of an empire that ruthlessly conquered Judah, bringing it under its rule. For God's people, Babylon embodied all that was evil: cruelty, lust, and greed, seen as the enemy of God's chosen people. Those who know the Old Testament recognize that Babylon is associated with organized forms of idolatry, blasphemy, and the oppression of God's people. During the reign of Antichrist, Babylon will exert unprecedented influence on the world, both religiously and commercially. Despite its opulence, Babylon represents idolatry, abominations, and impurity, is the personification of the satanic movement that could be described as the religion of global order. Our world is in a state of readiness to be seduced by this figure, driven by the idea that the fundamental thing is to have a belief, regardless of its specific nature. This trend is clearly observed in the ecumenical movement that has gained strength in recent times. Major world religions and prominent Christian leaders are joining forces, signaling an unprecedented move toward global religious unity. This phenomenon appears to be leading the way toward the final events, where biblical prophecies and visions of a world unified under a single religion could find fulfillment. The belief that all paths lead to God is an error, as the book of Proverbs says, chapter 14, verse 12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end of it is the road to death. Humanistic wisdom is a poor foundation for determining what is true or false, good or bad, worthy or unworthy. God's written revelation is the only infallible source to determine the right path of life. The human path has within it the seeds of death. God's way leads to eternal life. Let's continue reading verse 6. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I was amazed with great amazement. Like many harlots, this woman was intoxicated, but not from alcohol consumption. The Babylonian harlot is described as drunk with the blood of the saints and martyrs of Jesus. This vivid expression was often used in the ancient world to denote a fierce desire for violence. Some interpret the saints and the martyrs of Jesus as two different groups, the former from the Old Testament and the latter from the New Testament. However, both descriptions most likely refer to the same group, God's people throughout history. The crucial point here is that false religion, personified by the harlot, is a persecutor and murderer. Although the world is captivated by her, the harlot becomes drunk with the blood of God's people. The vision was so shocking that when John saw it, he was astonished, expressing confusion, shock, surprise, and fear at the terrible sight of this splendid figure and his deadly goal. It is crucial to remember that some of the most terrible atrocities committed against genuine Christians have been perpetrated in the name of the Church, such as during the Holy Inquisition, which was promoted by the Catholic Church. Let's continue reading verses 7 and 8. And the angel said to me, "Why are you amazed? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that bears her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to rise from the abyss and go to perdition. And the inhabitants of the earth, those whose names are not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life, will be amazed when they see the beast that was and is not, and will be." The focus of the explanation is on the beast. It seemed that the harlot ruled ridden the Antichrist system, but he is the dynamic factor, using her the way tyrants have always used religion, as a mere tool to fulfill their purposes. The beast that John had seen is the Antichrist, the satanic ruler of the last and most powerful empire in human history, who will serve as Satan's instrument to attack Israel, persecute believers, conquer the world for Satan, and oppose Christ. It is described as one that was and is not, and it is about to rise again. That phrase refers to the false death and resurrection of the Antichrist. The alleged resurrection of the Antichrist and the rapid destruction of the false religious system will shock the world. Let's continue reading verse 9. This, for the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. The angel's statement, to the mind that has wisdom, invites John and his readers to pay attention to what follows. This rare expression presents a difficult and complex aspect of this vision. It will require much spiritual discernment to understand it, and perhaps only those who are alive at that time will fully understand it. The first key aspect of the vision we must understand is that the 7 heads of the beast in verse 3 represent 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Now, concerning the Great Babylon in theological interpretation has been the subject of debate and various interpretations over time. Here are some of the most common interpretations. First, the Roman Catholic Church. Many Protestant reformers, such as Martin Luther and John Calvin, interpreted the whore of Babylon as a representation of the Roman Catholic Church, which they accused of corruption, idolatry, and apostasy. In this interpretation, the harlot symbolizes a church that has fallen into corruption and strayed from the true Christian faith. Likewise, other theologians claim that Rome is the only city that sits on 7 hills, suggesting that the interpretation of Great Babylon in Revelation refers specifically to Rome. Second, corrupt political and economic systems. Some scholars see Babylon as a metaphor for any political, economic, or social system that opposes God's principles. This includes greed, injustice, oppression, and idolatry in all its forms. Third, futuristic interpretations. In futuristic interpretations of the apocalypse, Babylon can be seen as a future political, economic, or religious entity that will arise in the end times and be destroyed by God. Fourth, allegorical perspectives. From a more allegorical perspective, Babylon could represent the internal struggles of the human soul, symbolizing the temptations and corruptions that individuals must overcome to achieve salvation. Now, as we have mentioned, many commentators have associated the 7 mountains with Rome, known for being built on 7 hills, interpreting the woman as the Roman Catholic Church. However, this interpretation could be considered limited, and the other interpretations are ruled out. The context suggests that we are talking about more than just Rome, since the empire of the Antichrist is global in reach. Although Rome is a center of religious influence through the Vatican, intertwining with political leaders and often mixing religion and politics, it has also been blamed for the persecution of many Christians during the Holy Inquisition. The Vatican, in particular, is known for handling large sums of money and influencing global affairs that transcend the borders of the city of Rome. Let us continue reading verses 10 and 11, and there are 7 kings. 5 of them have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come, and when he comes, it must last a short time. The beast that was and is not is also the 8th, and he is among the 7, and he is going to perdition. Some theologians have suggested here the mountains represent 7 world empires governed by their rulers. The angel tells John that 5 of them have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. The 5 world empires of the Gentiles that had fallen are Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece. The empire that existed at that time was Rome. The other one that has not yet come is the last world empire of the Antichrist. Whatever interpretation is adopted, we are sure that the last empire described in the Apocalypse will be the government of the Antichrist. Let's continue reading verses 12 and 13. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings, who have not yet received a kingdom. But for 1 hour they will receive authority as kings together with the beast. These have the same purpose, and they will hand over their power and authority to the beast. These 10 kings are subordinate rulers who are subject to the Antichrist, and their empire will appear to be divided into 10 administrative districts. It is important to note that these kings have not yet received a kingdom. Therefore, they cannot be identified as historical figures in the current context. The mention that they will reign for 1 hour symbolizes the brevity of their dominion, which corresponds to a period of 3.5 years, according to apocalyptic symbology. They have the same purpose, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. Let's continue reading verses 14 and 15. They will fight against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called and chosen and faithful. He also said to me, "The waters that you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. The plan of action of the 10 kings, like that of Satan and the Antichrist, will be to declare war against the Lamb in the battle of Armageddon. John points out that the Lamb will defeat them. The battle will actually be a slaughter. Christ will completely destroy the forces that gathered against him at his second coming. The reason why all the enemy forces of hell cannot defeat the Lamb is because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. With Christ, when he returns, there will be those called and chosen and faithful, an indication that can only refer to believers. He also said to me, "The waters that you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages." This probably alludes to a confederacy of 10 nations. Whatever his exact identity, his actions are clear. This strange figure rules over all the peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages in the world. This shows that the impact of the harlot can be felt throughout the world as a result of her relationship with the beast. This will truly be a world religion. The meaning of the harlot focuses on her connection to the beast, meaning how she is completely intertwined with the beast and the government he leads. Let's continue reading verse 16. "And the 10 horns that you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, and will leave her desolate and naked, and they will devour its flesh and burn it with fire." The alliance of the Antichrist with the false religious system will not last. Finally, the 10 horns, the 10 kings, and the beast, the Antichrist, will hate the harlot. After having used the false religious system to help him gain control of the world, the Antichrist will eliminate it. He will want the world to worship him alone. He will turn against the harlot and leave her desolate and naked, and she will devour her flesh and burn her with fire. This graphic language of extreme violence is used to make clear that the Antichrist and his minions will completely destroy the false religious system. In the end, the Antichrist will not tolerate any form of worship other than his own. Let's read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, "Which opposes and rises up against everything that is called God or is an object of worship, so much so that he sits in the temple of God as God, showing himself to be God." The Antichrist will violently oppose any form of divine worship and enthrone himself in the temple of God in Jerusalem. As much as Daniel and Jesus show that this blasphemous action of the Antichrist takes place in the midst of the tribulation period, those who refuse to worship him will be persecuted. Many will die as martyrs. Thus, the Antichrist concludes his alliance with Babylon with destruction after having used it for his own purposes. Once he no longer needs it, he reveals his true purpose of being worshipped, that of being the center of religion. Someone once said, "The devil pays poorly to those who serve him." In contrast, Christ is a good master who has great rewards for his children. Let's continue reading verses 17 and 18, because God has put it in their hearts to execute what he wanted, to agree and give their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth. The judgment sent against religious Babylon was ordained by God. Sometimes God uses one evil group, in this case the 10 kings, as an instrument of his judgment against another evil group, in this case religious Babylon. This happens quite frequently in the Bible. The political support that these 10 rulers will provide to the Antichrist will be ordained by God. But self-interested and Satan-inspired actions are precisely within the purpose of God's sovereign plan. In reality, it is God who has put it in the hearts of the followers of the Antichrist to execute what God wanted, to give his kingdom to the beast. The power of God is behind the destruction and consolidation of the evil empire. As always, Satan is the instrument of God's purposes. The unified government of the world, so sought after by humanists, will have finally arrived, only to be destroyed in a powerful action of divine judgment. Every prophecy of the coming of Christ and the establishment of his kingdom will be completely fulfilled. The world will receive exactly what it asks for, a religion without God and a government without God. Finally, although the final fulfillment of these prophecies will occur after the rapture of the church, the mystery of iniquity is already unfolding today. Therefore, we must be cautious of religious movements that corrupt the gospel. Babylon, the great corrupt city, is doomed to be destroyed by God, who will cause a devastating economic crisis through an alliance between the Antichrist and the false prophet. The kings of the earth, jealous of Babylon, will join the beast to destroy it. This fall is presented in the book of Revelation with the certainty that it has already been decided by God. The message for Christians is clear: they must avoid the influence of Babylon and seek a life in a higher spiritual city. The first warning is that Babylon is filled with the blood of martyrs, indicating that in an immoral city there is no place for the righteous. The second warning is a call to leave Babylon so as not to share its sins and plagues, since its crimes have reached heaven. The third warning is about emerging religion, a movement that mixes diverse beliefs and dilutes biblical truth, promoting a relativistic approach that distances believers from the true Christian faith. It is essential that Christians stand firm in their beliefs, resist deceptive doctrines, and seek God's wisdom to remain faithful to the truth of the gospel. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, may God bless you.